We're not in a reality show. We are running the most important country in the world, and I hope that the decision-making process gets on track because we're all dependent on it.
Boy, I don't know. That's a little scary. You're not crazy about President Trump?
I'm a little bit concerned about how decisions are made, and people are listening to us.
Well, hopefully they are. I'm Ronn Owens, former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright in the studio. There's so much to talk about. Why don't we start off? All right, start with the Trump administration in general and their attitude towards foreign policy. It seems to be rather simplistic, and the lack of experience seems to be showing. Would you concur?
I definitely would concur, and it's makes me very nervous because we do have a decision-making process. We're not a brand new country, and trying to figure out how decisions are made in this White House is of concern to Americans, but also to foreigners. They want to know what we're really doing.
Well, they seem to be looking at us with skepticism. They seem to be rather concerned about what we're doing in terms of the world, but they're also concerned about relations one-on-one. So take a few countries like Russia, which, of course, is the key issue right now. The Russians, are they suddenly big enemies again? Are we back to the Cold War? What is it? Or are they in bed with the President of the United States? Who knows?
There's probably a little bit of both. I think that we're trying to figure out what our relations are with Putin as president and the kinds of things that he's doing, and trying to, in many ways, make sure that the European Union doesn't function and pushing people around in the Middle East. And yet at the same time, there is a desire to have some kind of a relationship with them. I think most of us agree that we need to have a relationship in which we deter and have dialogue. That is what has been said. But it's confusing, and in terms of whether Putin and President Trump have similar agendas, that's the question out there.
Understood, but it's fair to say that Vladimir Putin is not a friend of the United States, period. I mean, the idea that somehow he and Trump are going to have peace in the world, it's just illogical, isn't it?
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think that we have to remember that Vladimir Putin's training is in the KGB, their secret police. But he is using the tools that he has. He's played a weak hand pretty well. And so for us to think that they can be friends, there are things that we can agree on and should. But I think finding some kind of a buddy-to-buddy relationship is unreal.
It's interesting when you say the idea of they're not at our level when it comes to whether it's defense, whether it's the economy. I mean, their economy is in tatters. They're not our equal. It's not like the old days of the Cold War, is it?
Not at all. And I think that one of the issues, by the way, is I think it was a mistake for the Reagan-Bush people to say that we won the Cold War. They lost the Cold War, and that isn't just a semantic difference. The system failed. And Putin has aligned himself with those who think, in his country, who feel that they have lost their national image. By the way, in '91, I went and I did a series of attitude surveys all over Europe, and we did focus groups. And one I'll never forget was one outside of Moscow, where this man stands up and says, "I'm so embarrassed. We used to be a superpower, and now we're Bangladesh with missiles." And what's happened is Putin has identified kind of with this loss of national pride, and he is doing everything he can, despite the bad economic situation, to kind of give pride and face to the Russians.
Is the level of popularity he has in Russia due to the fact that there is this nationalistic fervor and they support him, or is it just sheer terror that keeps him in power?
I think a little bit of both. I do think that the people were lacking a sense of pride in their country. He has, from their perspective, returned it. But those people who oppose him, and there are some, are obviously have to be worried. Some of them have been arrested. One of them was shot. Nemtsov was assassinated. So there is certainly a fear of the government.
Let's talk about the big story today, the WikiLeaks releasing a trove of alleged CIA hacking documents. The details specifically are not known, but among other disclosures, apparently, the CIA and allied intelligence services had managed to bypass encryption on all these popular phone and messaging services. We're talking Signal, WhatsApp, Telegram, and the like. And in fact, the government can penetrate Android phones, collect audio and message traffic before the encryption's even applied. I mean, first of all, how dangerous is that? And secondly, do they do it?
I don't know, frankly, but I do think that what is unfortunate, just as the way I felt about the first drop of WikiLeaks, they're damaging to the way that a major country has to operate. And in fact, a lot of it may be gossip and made up things, but it certainly is damaging when you have a drop of major documents. But I don't know whether they're doing this kind of
It's
thing.
like when they made Edgar Snowden a hero, and my point was, whoever appointed him king, who made him the king and the decision maker, and I look at him far more as a traitor than a hero. And yet here in the Bay Area, there are people who look at him as some kind of a hero.
Well, I agree with you. I don't think he's a hero, and I think that it is important for a country to be able to do foreign policy, and it's very hard if somebody just on their own kind of decides that they're going to reveal a lot of cable traffic and things that are necessary for running a government.
One thing we got to get into, and this is surprising to me because the last time you were here, it was kind of an oblique reference to it and let it go at that. There are now missile tests coming out of North Korea, and there's some serious concerns about Kim Jong-un and what's going on there.
I am very worried, by the way, because we have been watching very carefully what the North Koreans have been doing in terms of developing their nuclear capabilities and their missile capabilities and testing missiles that can go fairly far, though some of them have really failed. But there is a concern that they will be able to ultimately develop a missile that could reach the United States with some kind of a small delivery system. And then our allies there are also worried, the South Koreans and the Japanese. And Kim Jong-un really is, I think the kindest word I could use, unpredictable. And we're hoping that the Chinese will be able in some way to persuade him not to act in a completely crazy way.
Chinese are their only real supporters. So to what degree, why are the Chinese supporting North Korea? How does it help them around the world?
Well, it doesn't help them around the world, but what it does help them is they're concerned about the fact that the whole place might fall apart.
And the refugees just
would
spill
come
over
into
to
China.
Yeah.
And then if there were a unified Korean peninsula, that then Americans would be closer to their borders. But mostly they're afraid of the refugee flow and kind of whole set of destability in North Korea.
Correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I kind of remember that there was a pattern when it came to dealing with North Korea. They'd say they're going to build bombs. We'd sit down, we'd talk to them, we'd give them some money, we'd give them some food, and then they'd pull it away, and it went over and over and over like that. It seems to have gone beyond that this time.
It has gone beyond that. But let me just say, I hold no brief for the North Koreans, but there are times that we have not fulfilled some of the requirements on our own that we had promised. And then I have to tell you, I actually am still the highest level sitting official to have met with the North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un's father, Kim Jong-il. And we were in the middle of talks when I came back. It was November 2000. I think Americans were kind of confused about the result of that elections. The North Koreans definitely were. And we had been in the middle of talks, and then the Bush administration decided not to follow up. But as I said, I have hold no brief for them. But this time I think that it is more complicated in that the leader is less, I think, rational than his father.
Which leads to one last question on it. I mean, to what degree is the leadership? I mean, here, I look at Kim Jong-un, and I think here's a guy, he likes the fruits of power. He's got all these people impoverished. He's got all the booze. He's got the tapes. He's got everything going on for him. He doesn't want to lose that. Well, he fires a missile. Boom. We'd obliterate him. I mean, why would he do that? That would be committing suicide.
Well, the question is whether he gets that, because you're absolutely right. And I think he does like to be the center of attention. He's doing unbelievable things in his own country, executing relatives. There's a whole question about what happened to his half-brother now in Malaysia, and he wants to make sure he's in complete control. But there have been plenty of warnings saying you do this and it's all over for you. So there's no question about that. But the question is how rational he really is.
Madeleine, he had a heart attack. That's what they said.
Yeah.
And if you believe that. Madeleine Albright is here, former Secretary of State. If you'd like to join us with a quick question, feel free.